There we go. For a while there, I thought I was going to be sitting in a rowboat.
Okay. Is that what you said?
We're good.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to City of Hagerstown's Planning Commission, September the 1st. I'm not just the one commissioner. There are others, but they're all mine. So joining me today is Chris Davis, who's virtual, Ron Thomas, ditto, Judy Willer, and Jim Stone. Welcome. Good seeing you guys. Also in the room, we have Kathy Moore, the PCAD director. Seen that? Okay. Planning Code Enforcement Director. Steve Bachmiller, Development Planner, Zoning Administrator, and and Megan Flick, Planner, and Ashley. Amy's not with us.
She's manning the door for the next couple minutes.
Okay.
Make sure there's not anybody else coming.
And we have others also in the room as will be introduced as we go through our agenda. First item is an extension of our rules of procedure. Steve, I'll turn that over to you for discussion.
Yes, 2 meetings ago, the commission extended the temporary COVID rules of procedure through August 30th to handle the meetings in August. We are now beyond August 30th, so technically at the moment, we do not have adopted rules of procedure. So what we'll need is a motion to extend the previous rules through a specific date. This planning staff recommends that you do September 29th. That gives you this meeting and September 29th to finalize the revised ones that we've been working on. Should be enough. If not, you can always just extend it first meeting in October. But we do, right now, we're operating under no rules. We have to operate under rules, so we'll need a motion to extend.
I'll make that motion.
Who was that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Ron, second by Chris. Are we ready to vote?
And it's until the motion is until September, through the meeting of September 29th.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Hearing no objections, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I rule that it passed unanimously. All right, so we want to go ahead and review those now, or want to go ahead and do the minutes?
I would recommend that you hold the rules until the end of the meeting since you got a bunch of folks here.
So then we'll move on to the minutes from our meeting of August the 25th. Any additions or corrections? Hope you all had a chance to review them.
I didn't see anything that needed correcting. I thought they were very good, and it was a very informative trip.
That too. So is that a motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right.
Was that Judy?
Judy,
Yep.
second. Ready to vote? Any objections? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. they
Abstain.
pass unanimously.
Jim.
We have one abstention.
No, I abstain.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thanks, Jim.
And we do have some other minutes that are kind of queuing up a little bit, and we expect to have them all drafts to you all for the next meeting.
Okay. Moving on then to development review, we have first a consultation for car sales. Lot at 850 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Okay. We have some visitors with us today. I provided a memo to you all. I'm not going to read it verbatim because this is a consultation and not a actual application. But what we have is a property in the CG zoning district. It's an irregular shaped property with an existing building on it. We were contacted by these folks who are looking to do car sales on the property. They actually prepared, have a minor site plan in process for it. However, for the benefit of the applicants here and those listening who might not be familiar, the zoning ordinance has specific performance requirements when introducing car sales or car rental to a property. Basically, it mostly revolves around what we would think of our standard expectations for developing a new parking lot as far as buffer requirements from streets and property lines, landscaping, et cetera, and a few other things. However, in this particular situation, it would be nearly impossible, if not impossible, to comply with the letter of all that. The ordinance does allow the Planning Commission to entertain reasonable reductions to those requirements on a case-by-case basis. I forwarded around earlier today a marked up copy of their site plan showing in green where the 10-foot landscaping buffer would be required by the ordinance. That's not in the original packet, but we do have the drawing itself in the packet just without the green highlighting. The green highlighting is shown on the hard copy that's on the easel here. The property has a shared access easement along the north side of the property. Also, There's issue with the frontage of the property is almost entirely an uncontrolled driveway apron. There's maybe 15 feet of vertical curb because there is a utility pole near the center of the frontage. Megan, if you could scroll to the street photos. It's the property that's right by the railroad track there. As you can see, that's mostly an apron, except right on the very left edge of the photograph, the sidewalk does start to have a vertical edge or a vertical curve to it. And Megan, if you could move to the other photo, this shows it a little bit clearer. It shows the to the gutter pan apron across the northern 40% of the site, and then you have that utility pole that has vertical curb for probably about 15 feet or so south of that. We talked to the city engineer's office, and the site plan is going to come in for this property, which is required by this proposed use. The city engineer's office would like to have a discussion about the possibility of narrowing these driveway aprons to better control access into and off of the site. The site, as you can tell, is irregular shaped and small. Also, we haven't had much in the way of conversation with these folks at this point. It's mostly been just email communication, but it has a 3-bay garage building. So one of the questions going to be is, will there also be a car repair business operating on site using these 3 bays? If so, there are parking requirements for car repair businesses with this number of bays that would all but eat up any space that they would have for display of vehicles. So we thought it would be best for the applicants to come in, have a conversation with you all as far as what is intended here and what waivers and reductions to these requirements might you be amenable to in order for them to effectuate their plans. But these are the issues that we've identified: the irregular shape, the driveway access, the potential for another use on the property consuming parking. By the time they would have to comply with everything that our ordinance currently requires, there literally would be no room to display any cars on this property. So with that, I'll turn the conversation over to the commission and the applicants.
Welcome. I don't have your name, so can I have your name, please?
Hi, my name's Naima. Naima Mohammed.
Giovanni Moore.
And I'm Lee Royer, the surveyor.
Alrighty. Does that colored drawing, did that get out to everybody?
This one here?
Yeah.
Yes, to the planning commission members. I don't think I managed to send a copy to you all of this marked up version. I just did it today.
Yeah. I've been running around all afternoon, believe it or not. I don't have a copy with me.
Well, I can give you.
Oh, I have.
Everybody has
I have
the unmarked
that.
up
I mean, I
copy.
have that. I don't have one where Steve colored it up.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Well, you let me explain about this.
Sure. You want to? You want to go first? That's great.
All right, yeah. It seemed like we were all kind of waiting on somebody to step up. I don't know whether there's a camera that we can show some of this stuff, but I can try to explain what we have here. All right, these people have felt that youth in our area need a place to learn a trade. And so what they thought they're proposing to do is really, yes, there are 3 bays into the front of this building that are on, say, the north end for everybody's consideration. And so what they thought they would do is they'd bring young people in there to learn how to work on cars and to repair cars. And in doing so, then to make the business profitable, they would display those cars and sell those cars. So they bring in cars that may not work right or whatever, bring them in there, repair them, and then display them and be inexpensive cars for the people in the area.
we have provided along the northern side of in the crosshatched area, or the back out into the crosshatched area, we have 10 cars that we can park along that side, which would do employee parking and customer parking on the part towards the street, but employee parking in the back. You see the long, and I can point to it, but I'm not sure it's going to help anybody. There's a ramp in the middle of it that's really not labeled there, but there's a long skinny piece that comes out, and that's a concrete ramp that was put in some time ago. I don't know by who. So that would be kind of the dividing line for the employee parking to be towards the railroad, and then the front part would be customer parking.
Megan, could you do the street view on that, please? The next one down. There we go.
Yeah, it would be along the side of the building between the white truck and the red car. And you can see there beside the white truck, there's a concrete ramp coming out. So that it's kind of the dividing line. Although we feel as though we don't need that much customer parking. One or two customers there at any one time is going to be, I think they'll be ecstatic if there's that many people looking for the cars all at one time. So that's the plan. Now, I did hear you say, as Stephen said, we have two ramps coming down there, and we talked about this last night, that they don't want to use the closest ramp towards the railroad, towards the point, the southern part. So they're amenable to putting in poles and a chain between there to keep anybody from coming in there, and also for the cars. I read in your and Stephen's letter to us that you have a problem with people in car lots and they park them out over the sidewalk, and people can't walk on the sidewalk. So we certainly don't want that either. So that's why we put up a fence, small poles and chains, so you can not come in there, and then not drive out either. And I understand your restriction about the 10-foot grass areas all around there. And if we do that, yes, we can't use that at all. But this building has been like this. I mean, I went back on Google and got some aerial photography that this thing's been probably used for a long time, because you can tell by the design of it, it was built as a car repair place. It's not really amenable to any other kind of commercial operation there. So
Never as a gas station.
pardon me?
Never as a gas station.
I don't think so. Nobody seems to
No,
think
no,
that.
sir, it wasn't.
I have pictures back here to 2013. I didn't go back any further where I can show you. But
That's all right.
yeah, if you go on to Google back to 2013, you'll see that it's cars all over the place, but no gas pumps.
Right.
None of that.
Yeah, let's bring it up.
Yeah. These are the dates down here at the bottom. The date is down at the bottom, in real small print, but that was 13. So, I mean, this building's been used this way for years. And so, if you look at the Google pictures, it's a little questionable. Even the one Stephen has, if you blow up that one, the blue one, it says, says D&G Tires and Auto Repair on the bottom. Going to Google, go to street view, I think that's what it shows. D&G new and used tires and auto repair. So if you go into your ordinance where it says that it's been used that way within the last 5 years, we feel as though we fall into that. But I see that, I know down at the bottom, it says, well, that means you can do that, but you still have to comply with the regulations. So
I can provide a little clarification on that. That 5-year provision is whether or not the site has been used for car sales within the last 5 years. If it's been used for car sales within the last 5 years, then these design standards don't apply. If it was within the last 5 years and it was the last use. But that's car sales. Because basically car repair, if somebody just wanted to do car repair in this site, they could go do it tomorrow. It's the introduction of car sales to the site that kicks into these requirements. But there's an exception that says if the property was used for car sales within the last 5 years, and it was the last use. So let's say 3 years ago, there was car sales and somebody moved D&G tire in and they weren't doing car sales. Most recent use applies, which is sales, which means these standards do apply. So I found no reference to car sales on this property as the last use or within the last 5 years. So the standards apply, subject to whatever reductions the planning commission may be willing to discuss. So that's why they kick in at this point. And just so we're clear, the car repair activity would be strictly as part of the sales activity. And it would not be like my car's acting up on me. I couldn't bring it to you to get my car repaired, correct?
Well, yes, you actually could do that. The main idea we're looking at is with the students, teaching them the proper ways of the tire regulations, just making sure they know how to approach business, how to interact with adults, how to be professional. So if someone were to bring their car in to get it repaired, they could. The students would be supervised, and with the instructors being certified by the International Tire Association, they would actually be, yes, that would be able to happen. As far as the sales portion of it, that was just mainly like maybe a couple of vehicles on the side in that particular way.
Okay, so the primary use here is actually a car repair business,
Yes. Yes.
open to the public. Okay.
Yes.
I have a question of the applicant. The other view that we saw, which basically shows the north side of the property, it looks to me, yes, now it looks to me that there's, a change in the paving. Is that where the property line is?
No, sir.
I don't care. No, ours is, the property line is a little bit, I would say if you look on that picture that Stephen has and you move the cursor there to the left, that white spot, it'll be somewhere close to there. So
Well,
part of this
okay.
property is stone.
So my question is, do you have like an easement from the adjoining property to be able to get trucks and cars in there? Because you would never be able to, like where that panel truck is parked, you'd never be able to get to that spot without going through the adjoining owner's property.
Yes, sir. We do have an easement. If you look on the site plan, it's a cross-hatched area on the north side, on the north property line. See that cross-hatched area? That's the easement for everyone to use, for both sides to use.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my understanding that in addition to commercial repair and so forth, that you're also going to be conducting classes in mechanical car repair.
Yes, sir. We have a youth program, and part of the program will be major and minor engine repair that they'll be learning. We also have a tire changer and balance. They'll learn how to change tires and balance tires, as well as battery restoration and auto detailing.
How many students do you anticipate? Because that's a very small piece of property to conduct all that business with the vehicles and so forth.
Well, there are various rooms inside the building. However, we're looking at no more than 10 students per session, and we're looking at 2 sessions per day. So you will have a morning session and then an evening session. So we can have up to 20 students in a course at a time. However, they would be split between a morning and an evening, afternoon session.
Not all of which will have
The reason why I asked that is because I'm familiar with that property. I've used to not work there, but was on the board of the boys club that's there. And I can remember when that place was loaded with cars, you could barely get through back in the 80s, 85 and so forth. So I'm concerned about the congestion that might develop with having not only vehicles for repair, but also the people that would be attending to the vehicles.
Well, if I may, well, primarily, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, we're gonna have, this is gonna be a lot of.
If you
I'm
could
sorry.
bring it closer.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. It'll primarily be, I would say, your portion control, there will be control rather with, the students. That's just on the high end. In other words, everything will be, the property now, we repainted it, done quite a bit of work to it. So everything will have a structure and an order. In other words, I can understand that concern, but it wouldn't be chaotic. So say, for example, if there were 10 students that were signed up and you guys say, well, hey, we need to, it's going to be required to do thus and so, thus and so. It will be maybe a couple of that day. In other words, we would gauge that based upon how everything is set up. So it wouldn't be congested. It'll be even flow. It'll be, mathematical order there.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And also some of the classes will be Zoom as well. All the students may not necessarily be on the property at that particular time. It just kind of depends on what's happening because we want to make sure that certain requirements are enforced. Because we have to do training with them on how to actually be able to come out to a class, to have the proper attention span. In other words, they have to meet certain requirements in order to get into the class. So if they pass those requirements, they get in. If they just haphazardly come, you have to come at the designated time. So we will be enforcing those procedures.
I understand what you're saying there. I'm more concerned about the probability of congestion there with different people coming through there, doing various different things, and causing that to create a problem. That's what I'm concerned with.
I think one thing that we're going to need to figure out on the front end is what exactly is this use? Is it a car repair business that just happens to be very friendly to training new mechanics? Or is it a private trade school where the primary mission here is to teach students how to be in this particular industry? And I'm not real clear based on this conversation which way that is.
I'm going to twist that conversation just a tad bit. I think I'm on the same course as you are. How many cars do you think you have for sale at a time?
4 or 5. Because to answer the question, the primary purpose of it is to interact with the students.
I think it is, and I heard that earlier, and I'm not doubting that. But I'm looking for a lower number. Could we get it at 4 or 5? I want to get a commitment that no more than X number of cars will be for sale at one particular time. And if you got 11 spaces on there now, if 3 folks show up for training in vehicles instead of 5, that, and you have at least 2 instructors on site. That's 5 of the 11 spaces.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
What I'm receiving from what you're sharing is as if each student that comes is going to have their own vehicle that needs to be on the premises.
Yeah, I understand not each one, but yeah.
Right. The students' transportation is arranged for most of them, so it will be one vehicle that would be picking up any students.
Good.
If their parents was dropping them off, then it wouldn't be a vehicle on the property for the students.
All
The
right.
customer parking is really the only thing that's needed. The students wouldn't have parking spots, and that way we are arranging transportation for the
Right.
students.
So if we could have assurances that no more than 4 vehicles will be for sale at any time, I don't think we really need to get into identifying as a used car lot. Now, Steve, you have to tell me if we can do this.
Actually,
I'm
one of
trying
the
to find my way in here.
right. the hard and fast that we need to deal with is the zoning ordinance requires for auto sales and service, 1 space per employee plus 2,000 square feet of lot area, or an auto service station, which this sounds like this is probably more what it is 2 spaces per service bay plus 1 per employee. If you have 3 service bays, that's 6 spaces just for the car repair business, plus the employees. You start running out of available parking spaces real fast on this site. The alternative is to go to the BZA and ask the BZA for a parking variance to reduce.
We're gonna have to modify something here. We're gonna have to get some kind of variance.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
what I'm shooting at is a way to get a commitment that we could be ironclad. So it's not transferable to future owners. Limit the number of vehicles that could be for sale on the lot at any particular time. I don't want this property sold 5 years and someone come in and say, well, we can put more in here. No, you can't. But I don't know, we can do this now between all of our regulations. Would it be nice if we could get a commitment that no more than 4 vehicles will be for sale at any one particular time?
We are in harmony with that.
Now, whether the city can modify its stance and work its way through the ordinance to be able to do that.
it's a little complex, but it could happen. The zoning ordinance requires for the car repair business 2 spaces per bay plus 1 per employee. So there's 6 plus however many regular employees may be on the site at any given time. Let's say it's 2. I'm just going to pick a number. There's 8 of your 11 parking spaces right there. To reduce that would require a trip to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Might have to require that.
Well, if we're reducing the amount of space, because we jammed 10 parking spaces in here for the display area for sale. If we reduce that to 4, we can pick up 6 there.
There's 11 spots on there on the drawing now.
Well, yeah, it's, let me see, but we have 4.
They're even numbered.
We have 4 sitting there on the south, really 5 that could be there. And then we changed along the north side, and I guess you guys can see that, along the north side, we put parking parallel to that ramp. So that's where we get 11. We could really get possibly 12 in there along that side.
That's not pushing. That's not pushing. I'm trying to bend the rules here.
I know.
Don't force another one in on me.
No, I'm trying not to.
I'm gonna work with 11. I want you to work with 11 too.
Okay.
Okay?
There's two parking spaces there identified as 7 and 8. They look like they hang out in front of a service bay. Megan, could you put the street view up again?
Where?
I could be
Oh,
wrong.
yeah, in a revised one, I backed those up, Stephen, so we don't go past the face of the building.
All right.
Do you have with the terms of the easement that goes in between those 2 properties, you can do that?
Yeah, you can still back out into the easement.
Okay.
Because we're the front of there's a Jaguar, the burgundy car. If you go from that pole or the front of that car, 5 feet out is still the property we own. It's not part of the easement.
Okay.
So the way the drawing looked, it had the spaces on this side parallel to the building. So you was like 2 spaces before the ramp and a space on the other side of the ramp. We could actually park the vehicles the direction that red car is parked going down the building, and we would still be 3.5 to 4 feet away from the easement or the common way.
That would depend upon your agreement or that access. And that has to, I'm sure, be looked at by somebody.
Yes, sir.
Whether a permanent blocking of that is allowable. So by putting a parking space in that ingress and egress zone. So that has to be studied. But we can't do that tonight.
This is a
I wondered
consultation.
If the commission would be okay, if some kind of agreement could be worked out between Steve and the applicant to cement 4 spots only for sale, non-transferable. We're not going to call this a used car lot. We're going to call it a educational facility for training of folks to learn how to work on cars. But we can allow up to 4 spaces for vehicles for sale. But there's a lot of work's got to be done to get there. And I need you to call, like, if the commission's okay with that, I'd like to ask Steve to move forward with that.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
I'm
okay.
I'm still a little leery about the congestion, but right now, Steve can work it out. I'm okay with it.
You'll get to see it again.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that this body is amenable to not requiring any of the stuff that the ordinance requires, as long as it's limited to 4 cars.
Because we're not going to call it a used car lot.
Right.
If we can figure out all the other moving
If you can
parts.
figure out all the other stuff.
Okay.
There's a lot of bridges yet to be crossed, but I'm encouraging both sides to work towards a resolution on
Okay.
that line.
You might want to hear from Jim Bender on the issue of the controlling the access on the site.
Yeah, Steve mentioned that this plan, was floating around the consultation, and he pointed out the existing conditions where it's really not very well controlled as far as, defined driveways. And at that point, we didn't really have a plan or didn't have a layout of what was being proposed for the parking. And my comment to Steve is we would like to look at the layout and work with them, trying to find some way to cut down on the number of places that you can just pull directly out onto Pennsylvania Avenue from that parking lot. But like I said, at that point, I think when Steve talked to me, we didn't necessarily even have the concept plan at that point. He just knew that this was coming. So that was the basis for my comment.
I have another question for Steve. You mentioned that, and we've talked about potentially classifying this as a private technical school. Does that have zoning implications of its own?
CG zoning district, it should be fine. It's
No,
really
but-
just defining what it is to figure out what the parking requirement would be.
Well, I mean, I kind of think that, I'm okay with looking at this as primarily a technical training school as opposed to either auto repair or auto sales. But what you're saying is that would be permissible in this district, and there's no specific design criteria that we would have to deal with.
No specific design criteria for a car repair business or for the trade school. It's reoccupation of the existing building. The only thing that really kicks in is when you start talking about car sales on it, then the site plan standards start applying. As zoning administrator, my inclination is to call it a car repair facility, because if anybody in the neighborhood can pull up there and say, I want my car worked on, it's a car repair facility. I have a hard time calling it a trade school at that point. It just might be a car repair facility that's just really gung ho on training future mechanics. We'll work with that. But if as they described, anybody in the neighborhood has an issue with their car and they want to come and get it repaired there, it's a car repair facility. I don't think I'm going to be able to call it anything other than that. Ron?
Yeah, my interpretation from years past was a operation like this was just a repair facility. In other words, someone brought a vehicle in there that they no longer wanted and wanted to get rid of it. And they donated it or sold it for whatever they could get for this facility. And the students repaired it and then sold it themselves as owners of that vehicle. It wasn't one of those where, I could bring my car in there and get a new transmission put in it. It was their car once it moved in there for the training.
But
That's
we're not hearing that here. The applicant,
Yeah,
the folks here at the table are saying that they would serve the local community with auto repair services. So I think that's what I'm gonna have to call it as zoning administrator. I don't think I have a whole lot of choice on that.
Well, then that's what I'm looking at. Then this is more of a auto facility rather than a training facility.
Right. What will happen here, if you all are amenable to essentially waiving the site plan standards, if they keep the number of cars to the particular number 4 or less, I think is the way this conversation is going. Then what will end up being the workout on my end is figuring out what the parking requirement is for the car repair business, backing the numbers out. And if there's a difference, they might have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, asking the BZA to reduce the parking requirement for the car repair business to accommodate the removal of 4 spaces that are going to be vehicle display spaces. That's the way it'll have to work out. And I can't speak for the BZA, but
I'm in favor of that. Is y'all okay with that approach?
Yeah,
Okay,
all right. And that's what we'll do. So we'll have some more dialogue to figure out what your official parking numbers are and whether or not you need to go make a visit to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Okay?
If we do away with any car sales, we'll have to go back.
If you do away with car sales on this site, you don't even have to come back. It's a car repair business. Zoning, the building is there. You're not changing anything. The zoning works for car repair.
We have to make that decision.
Yeah, the issue here is car sales. Yeah.
Okay.
So, if I may, so from this point forward, this means that we go ahead and go forth with, like the gentleman shared, there's no more than, if we get in good faith and agreement of no more than 4 car sales, then our next step will be another meeting. This is considered the consultation, correct?
Yes,
Am I correct? Okay.
yes.
So if we decide to proceed from that point, then we'll get a notification on the next step. I'm a layman at this. So I don't-
Sure.
You will need to be working with Steve between these meetings.
Okay.
So as all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed correctly, he's able to stand behind it as a zoning administrator so that it can get your project going. If you want car sales. If you want to forget about car sales, you don't need to come back. You just keep right on going.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next is a site plan review for the Fairgrounds Parks Skate Park.
Okay, this is yes 2021-11, the skate park at Fairgrounds Park. This plan is for the construction of the proposed skate park at Fairgrounds Park. It will be located southeast of the grandstands, between the grandstands and the off-leash dog area that is along the southern edge of the park. The location is depicted on the attached air photo where the basketball court is located. The disturbance is not enough to trigger Forest Conservation Ordinance. Given that this is in the middle of an existing park, about 200 feet from the nearest property line, and no new parking is proposed, little of the specific requirements of Article 5 regarding landscaping applies to this project. Therefore, the applicant is employing the alternate landscaping plan provision available to developers on the landscaping plan application, which was attached in your package. No new landscaping is proposed around the improvements due to the nature of those improvements. And that's explained in the applicant's narrative that it's actually not good to have a bunch of vegetative material that could get onto the facility itself. Staff has no objection to this approach due to what the development is and its location well inside the boundaries of an established park, no creation of new parking, and distance from nearest property lines. No plan review committee meeting was conducted for this project. PRC meetings continue to be suspended due to the pandemic. The following agencies have provided approvals: planning, city engineer, water, wastewater, chief code official. Fire marshal has provided conditional approval subject to adding 1 note to the plan, which appears to have been added and recently provided revisions. So we anticipate the fire marshal is going to give a quick approval to this. And when I wrote the memo, I wrote that we anticipate receiving light department approval in time for your meeting. We have received that, so the light department has approved it. Therefore, staff recommends approval, and Rodney and Jim are here.
Is
Before
this the
this
city?
basketball- Go ahead, Jim.
Is this the city's property?
Fairgrounds.
Yeah, it's Fairgrounds Park.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have a question, and that is this a liability concern for the city?
Hi, everybody. So Jim, that was studied pretty heavily by a task force that was appointed by the mayor and council. They sat down with our insurance company, with the city attorney, and discussed all that. And the upshot of that, as I recall, was that if it's not a facility where you pay, but it's open to the public, and that we post it as skating at your own risk, our insurance company, which is the legit, which is the local government insurance trust, who has insured many of these, there would be an increase in premium for the city, but it's pretty negligible, like literally under $1,000 a year. The city has so much liability with everything else we have. This is really not that much more. And I think the best thing I could tell you is our insurance company has a lot of experience with insuring these.
Well, if they're willing to insure it, I think that addresses my concern.
Okay.
Rodney, is there going to be some type of city supervision with the park during a specific
No.
time?
No, sir, there's no supervision. It's,
So it's basically just like the parks that have the basketball courts and the baseball diamonds. You go in there, first come, first serve, and whatever happens, happens.
exactly.
Okay.
Because if you undertake to supervise, then you really do have increased liability exposure.
Exactly. That, or if you charge to use it, you would have
Right.
much significant liability increase.
What about lighting?
It's not going to be opened at night. The park is not open at night.
Okay, so the park is closed and
Yes, the park is closed from dawn until half hour after dusk.
So then you're going to have a fenced in area. Then is that what you're going to have? Some place to block it off so it can't be used, or just hoping that the people there don't have good night vision?
It's not going to be fenced off. We do have park attendants that stay a couple hours after the parks are closed, but also this site was picked out of about 13 possible sites. And one of the reasons is that road in the foreground of the picture that police or other people could drive by here and there'll be eyes on it. It's a site that allows kids to be able to walk there from the various neighborhoods, but it's also a site that has the opportunity for people to see it and see what kind of activities are going on there.
I think it's a great idea. It gives the kids some place to enjoy themselves rather than tearing through the neighborhood.
instead of my front parking lot.
Well, out of all this, I've learned a quote, and that is that if your town does not have a skate park, it is one. And I think that's kind of sums all that up.
You're
Yeah,
right.
that-
Anybody that goes into the parking deck in the evening, heck, they use the downtown parking deck for skateboarding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I think you're right.
I think this will be a facility that people travel to. It's easily conceivable that people will come here and spend hotel stays to use this facility. It'll be a first-class facility that we can all be proud of.
That parking
Make
lot.
I make a motion
It may.
that we approve the site plan subject to light department comments.
Department approved it.
I think he approved it.
Okay. Now,
I'll second that.
This is Chris. This is Chris. I'll second.
Oh, okay, Chris.
Okay, motion made by Jim. Chris makes the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Here now the chair rules passes unanimously.
Okay.
Then we have a consultation on Thenwood Hall Forest Conservation Plan.
Megan, do we have Mr. Berman on?
Right here.
Ah, okay. Sounds good. Okay. Zooming in, we have Ben Berman from the sunny, or not so sunny in this picture, state of Florida at the moment. Mr. Berman is exploring the purchase of the old Linwood Hollow property. If you'll recall, earlier this year, the current owner came in and abandoned the residential subdivision that was on the property and also locked in most of the forest conservation plan to kind of prep the site for development or sale to somebody else who would develop it. Mr. Berman asked to workshop the issue of the existing configuration of the forest conservation plan because it might have some interference with some of their ideas on how to develop the property. The illustrations that are in your packet are the recorded forest conservation easement plats that were recorded in January of this year. A lot of it is not going to change, but there are places around the west of Nolan Village where there's some conflicts with their ideas. The areas that are to the south of, what's the name of that road? Is that Linwood? Linwood. South of Linwood pretty much would stay forest conservation. They're looking to do forest conservation adjacent to Nolan Village as part of a buffering. But some of the stuff more toward the center of the site, they would look to have some flexibility on. When the forest conservation plan was approved late last year and recorded earlier this year, there was some additional obligation that wasn't met because the idea was they didn't know how the property would develop and they would handle it either through street trees if Sweeney Drive was extended into the site for a multi-lot subdivision, or possibly fee in lieu or other planting areas. A lot of it depended on how the property would develop, which at the time the owner really just did not know. So you all are okay. I believe it was a remaining 20% or so of the obligation is kind of up in the air even at this point. But the areas that are shown here were locked in. We have, in a few cases, have redone forest conservation plans on properties. We haven't done it a lot, probably 2 or 3 times, but it's what he's asking is not unique. It's not something that we haven't done a couple times before. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Berman.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time. While I do live in Florida, I'm actually originally from Maryland in Montgomery County, and my family's company is called Berman Enterprises. We're actually a 3rd generation real estate owner, operator, developer. We predominantly in the DC area focus around Prince George's County, a little bit of Montgomery County, Northern Virginia, and Baltimore. And we have this property under contract, this 33 acres, which we saw had industrial IG zoning. And we are getting more and more involved in industrial development. And we are getting very close to the end of our due diligence and closing. And one of the questions or concerns that came up had to do with this forest conservation plan that was put in place. In talking to our various, I don't want to say consultants and advisors yet, because we have not signed any contracts with anybody, but in speaking to the folks who would help us develop this, build it, plan it, there are 2 areas in particular that we'd like to kind of talk about in terms of reducing the amount of forestry that's there, if it's possible, in order to create what we believe to be a better site plan, because it does limit the size of the building that we could go after, and alternatively, the amount of parking that we could put on the site, which is a lot of interest to almost any users, having good amount of parking on the site. Having said that, none of this discussion is related to the setbacks or anything like that. It's only regarding the forestry and the conservation plan.
So just that we're clear, the approach that they're taking is they fully expect to comply with all the requirements of the zoning ordinance in Article 5 as far as site plan standards and zoning setbacks, et cetera. What we're dealing with exclusively is just the location of forest conservation on the property.
Yes, and if you like, I can get more specific now. You tell me what the best process would be.
I see two configurations of buildings, there's just two ideas you have.
Yes, so there's two paths that we think this site could go. One path is, and I don't know which one you have in your packet first, but I'll just go in what is the order on my computer. One path would be is that we fully maximize the site with one building, which would yield roughly somewhere between 330 and 350,000 square feet. It would be, a very typical concrete tilt-up construction building. Again, it would effectively maximize the site in terms of a single building on FAR. And, we'd have stormwater management ponds on the quote unquote corners of the site, and then parking and drive aisles that would go around it. The other thought that we have right now, and I'm looking to the right because I have two screens up. The other thought that we have is the other plan that I believe you have in your packet. And, oh, great. It's a two building model whereby we would specifically go after build-to-suit opportunities for smaller users, because while there's been a lot of development in the city, around the city for these larger buildings, and most of them are spec developments by developers, we're really trying to go after the folks who are going to pay a premium for a smaller building, or alternatively, they need private access. They don't want to be in a multi-tenant environment, whatever the case may be. And so the other thought plan right now is, again, that two building model where same idea, the stormwater ponds would fit in appropriately, but we would be able to have two buildings versus one. And if you look at both plans, okay, so that's the two building model. If you look at both plans, there's really two areas of encroachment where the forestry conservation plan would actually be touching the buildings. It's hard to tell on this plan, but we're on the bigger building on the left, or okay, well, we could have stayed there. Yeah, either way, basically where you see the 200-foot setback on the left side of the page, effectively adjacent to the words City of Hagerstown, the forestry comes in like this, and it would significantly encroach into the property. It would limit parking. It would actually limit the size of the building we would have. And the second area, and you can stay on this page, is at the bottom right corner of this large building where you see it has the words 200 MBSL, at the bottom of the building. And it's basically where you then see a strip of forest conservation area. It actually is not like that. It's not this thin strip that goes straight around hugging the border. It actually juts in a little bit on that sort of V shape or check mark at the bottom. And so our hope would be to do something like what you see on these plans, still have forestry, still have nice boundary within the setbacks, but be able to push the forestry to the edge of the boundaries such that we could maximize the site on the building size that we would like to achieve, building or buildings sizes that we would like to achieve, as well as the amount of parking that we know today's users really, really need.
And Steve, we can modify the forest conservation plan as requested. We're allowed to do that by the state.
Yeah, there's nothing, actually, it's fairly common, as I understand it, out in the county. We have been conservative in our approach on it, but we have done it before.
Well, wasn't this area cleared? It's not like we're talking about pristine forest.
Yeah, the area that he's talking about is the area around where the stormwater management pond was put in toward the east end of the site, kind of backing up to Linwood Hollow. A lot of that area has already been compromised anyway, so.
When it was going to be the townhouse development, they started working out there before it got abandoned. And so the stuff got cleared out.
Okay.
How much,
It's not that a complicated thing to do. It's just whether we're willing to go along with it.
how much acreage or forest conservation acreage are we talking about losing?
Approximately, based upon the Google Earth measurements we're able to do, plus I tried to confirm this with one of the civil engineers we're talking about roughly 5 acres plus or minus, maybe even less. Yeah, I mean, it looks to us about 5 acres, and we can actually show you, if you go back to the forest conservation plan you had pulled up, I can actually highlight very easily what we were, if you go to the first page. So on the first page, you see right in the middle of the page, it says the words forest conservation easement number 3, 3.28 acres. And then on it L shapes, and below it, it says 0.6, it says proposed forest planting 0.67 acres. So that you combine is roughly 4 acres right there. And then to the right of that, where that sort of big, thick line, a thick area on the right side, and then it thins out as it goes up towards Sweeney Drive. It says a total forest planting of 0.51 acres. And then there's a small portion that is adjacent to it as part of the easement number 4 of 1.8 acres. We're effectively talking about cutting away roughly a half an acre to an acre of that whole area. So between the easement number 3, forest planting of 0.67 and, plus or minus an acre off of easement number 4, we get to about 5 acres.
Staff's only comment would be that when they come in with their ultimate plan of development, that they use every opportunity to preserve one site, to plant one site, and then use, if they're not going to be extending Sweeney Drive, then they're not going to get street tree credit. The rest would be in fee in lieu. So our only comment would just be to keep the fee in lieu to a minimum.
You got to extend Sweeney.
I mean, I don't have any problem in principle with the idea of looking at a different design that has less acreage. I mean, I think we can't really agree to it until we actually see it.
Yeah.
But at this stage, if the applicant is looking for an answer to the question, will we consider it? I wouldn't have any problem considering it.
I'll take a look. That works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see the whole concept laid out to figure out where things are going to go.
Absolutely. And I will point out one other thing, which you all probably are aware of, but actually, I'm going to use 3 names: Amazon /North Point /First Energy, who, Amazon has the building directly north of us across the train tracks. We've been made aware that actually, on behalf of Amazon and North Point, First Energy wants to accomplish the same thing because of their utility easement, because they have to provide redundant power to Amazon's building. And so we were recently made aware that they effectively are looking to do the same thing. So the hope would be that we would kind of work in concert on that. But I can appreciate, again, we don't have an official plan in front of you. And so really I was looking just for initial guidance and feedback. So I appreciate it very much.
If I could develop on that a little bit, these 2 issues kind of came up literally within a couple of days of one another. If you notice on the drawing, there's a utility easement that runs north from the terminus of Linwood Road up through that forest con area. It's that white strip in between forest conservation to the right of the circuitous driveway that runs through the woods back to those houses. We found out that that Potomac Edison's, that was an error when the forest conservation plan was processed before. That easement is not wide enough on this plat. So they were going to have to process a revised plat anyway to widen that easement out from 20 to 40 feet. So that area that you see there doesn't really help anybody at home, but for Doug's benefit anyway, it's this easement right here. It's a 20-foot wide utility easement. Thank you, Megan. She's running the cursor up and down the location. That needs to widen out from 20 to 40 feet.
It's the straighter white line that runs through there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was under the impression when we did this, that was just a straightening of Linwood Road to the old homestead.
No, the driveway to the old homestead winds back through the forest conservation area that's to the left of that. And that's why that just wasn't, what's it called? Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Steve, that easement you're talking about there.
Yeah.
You said it's only 20 feet wide?
On the plat, yes.
Are you sure that that wasn't inadvertently designed to be underground instead of overhead?
I'd have to defer to my contacts at Potomac Edison on that. I don't know.
Because that's the standard width of an underground easement for 15 kV or below?
That's a conversation we would have to have with the Potomac Edison folks. I am in a reactionary position on this. I got contacted by Potomac Edison saying we need to meet you out there.
Okay.
Because they got a hold of, as Ben mentioned, they're looking to run a line over to the Amazon site. And when they started looking into it, they said, wait a minute, this Forest Con plat this easement isn't wide enough for us. We need to contact the city staff to see if we can widen this out. And that's where we got.
Okay.
That's where we're at on this.
I just was, wanted to make sure that when you go to look at it, when you pull the actual, the right of way that was recorded, it dictates on there whether it is an overhead or an underground easement. If it was written correctly.
They provided me actually with some of their documentation, and it's sufficiently vague is about the best way to describe it.
I won't respond to that.
Very good, Rob, very good.
So one way or the other, we're going to have to deal with this forest conservation plat one way or the other anyway.
So right now, I hear that the commission is in favor of listening to an alternate to the forest conservation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
There you go. That's what we're going to do tonight.
Okay.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
Now, is this the service to building 1 or building 2?
I think it's the building 1, but I don't know.
Because
I
we've
don't know
had a
specifically.
conversation, the service to building 2 from city, like.
I'll double check on that. That's good because we were running through the forest conservation
Yeah,
plan
you want to know.
on building 2 in the other direction. Yeah.
The city like boundary runs sort of in between, and so building 1, I think, was forced to go to Potomac
That's the
Edison.
Okay.
Yeah. That sounds right.
We
Yeah.
tried to get it. Just couldn't. Potomac Edison
Yeah.
said, nope,
No,
that's
I'm
on
sure-
ours.
sure.
That's on ours.
Yep, they want it, they want it.
Yeah.
All righty. So now we're going on plan commission business, and that is discussion transportation element comprehensive plan.
Yes. So you have a couple of memos in the packet, and then I sent around a PowerPoint, which is up on the screen now. I emailed it yesterday, I believe. And so I'm going to work from the PowerPoint. So as you know, the mayor and council were reviewing the northern leg of R. Paul Smith Boulevard with a prospect for the Harrison tract. And they have determined that they feel that it's no longer viable to do that section of R. Paul Smith Boulevard. And on August 10th, they made a motion to direct the planning commission to remove that section from the transportation plan improvements recommendations in the comp plan at the next opportunity. So what we're here before you, since that is something that is sort of opening up the comp plan, we want to talk about not only that, which you've already provided feedback on that in the past before the mayor council made their August 10th motion, then also review of recommended roadway alignments through the rest of the Harrison tracts that are vacant in this area, in the southeast area of the city, review of recommended R. Paul Smith roadway alignments through the Louse tracts and the Funkstown Park tract, and then discussions of updates to the HEP MPO long range transportation plan that happened in 2018 and that is on the verge of happening in 2022. So the first item is the north leg of R. Paul Smith Boulevard. The recommendation back in 93 or so was the map on the right that you see. It's that S-shaped red line was the R. Paul Smith. It was going to run from the dual highway at Mount Etna, go across Howell, cut through the Harrison tract that's north of Edgewood, cross Edgewood, run through Harrison land till you get to Heb, cross through Lyle's land until you get to Beaver Creek, and then cross through what at the time had just been open farmland all the way down to alternate 40. Since that plan was developed,
A beautiful plan.
a beautiful plan, was in a number of planning documents over the years. Unfortunately, not in Washington County's planning document, And so development occurred in the path of where it was recommended R. Paul Smith come up to dual highway at Mount Etna. So now it's not possible to do that without expenditures of significant tax dollars and probably an adversarial process in order to take the properties that have been developed. And so now they'd have to go away to make this happen. The other reason why it was recommended to do R. Paul Smith through the Harrison tracts was to open it up for development, because at the time, the Harrison tracts were selling off an acre here, an acre there along Howell Road. And the concern was eventually Howell Road's frontage would be filled up and there'd be no way to get to the back to the land between there and the creek. So you were just basically going to box in a lot of land. So that was another motivation for the road. The prospect that is under contract now on this property would not be to do a bunch of small 1 acre lots, but they would be taking the entire parcel for a single controlled development. So a road to serve a subdivision is no longer needed. So that is why the council has recommended or directed the planning commission to remove that northern leg, the part that's circled on the map on the right, remove that from the transportation recommendations. So that's the first item. I don't know if you wanted to have any discussion of that.
And if we do, and that developer pulls up stakes and goes home, what do we got?
Yeah.
That.
If there's nothing else, the next item is other potential road alignments for the Harrison tract. This has come up because in looking at the traffic study for the prospective development on the Harrison tract in Edgewood, you got to try to figure out how to get the vehicles to the dual highway and to the interstate that didn't involve Edgewood Drive and dual highway intersection. And so that was looking at the extension of R. Paul Smith Boulevard is currently crosses, it's from Edgewood south to behind the hotel, and it stops there. The proposal is to extend that and then bend it up to the dual highway next to Bird Tire and have it be a 4-lane road, which would be built by the developer looking to develop the Harrison tract. And then if a way could be.
Interrupt now?
Sure, go ahead.
And the state highway department's ruling on that? Or?
They have reviewed it. They like that proposal. Their direction was they want the road to continue across to allow for Redwood to hook over into it, because apparently where Redwood connects with the dual highway is problematic.
It is.
So that would get the Redwood traffic able to get to a light, because this would be a lit intersection where this new road crosses dual highway. So it's showing it going across into the Harrison lands behind the old Sheraton, the old IBM building, showing it looping through and connecting back down over by in sort of the vicinity of where the road comes down now next to the old Sheraton. A recommendation that came out of a meeting that I'll talk to you about a little bit later is that Day Road should be extended across over to the new road that is coming up by Bird Tire, so you could actually avoid having to have that traffic go in near that Heb-Emmert triangle situation, which is also problematic. That the Landis Day folks could actually travel across behind the IBM building and get over to the new road and have a lit intersection and be able to go right or left. Another possibility is whether Fair Meadow could connect down into the Harrison tract. That road in the subdivision to the north dead ends at the property line. There's another dead ending, which is Bittersweet, but that apparently dead ends into a topographical issue and floodplain problems. So it doesn't seem like Bittersweet could actually be connected. But physically, at least, it seems like Fair Meadow might be able to be connected. So the recommendation is,
if I may, I can't see on this drawing where, I mean, Fair Meadow looks like it's like a row of houses across the part of the track where it would basically run over to the new road.
you put the hand at the F. Fair Meadow dead ends right there against the property line.
Oh, okay. I guess I can't see that because of the labeling.
Yeah, I put the labels so we could actually, it's very hard to see that area in these maps, so I labeled these points. So it'll be a little easier to see what we're talking about.
Okay.
Any development of the Harrison tract, by the way, to be consistent with our current subdivision expectations, would direct them to connect into Fairmeadow anyway,
If possible.
if possible.
So, city staff had a meeting with county staff and state staff to talk about all these issues. And at one point, it was shown to make a connection over to Abbey, and the county didn't like that idea. And if you've been on Abbey, you probably could get a good idea why. Abbey functions like a parking lot and a public road. So they really would not want a connection over to Abbey.
I agree with that because that's got a row of townhouses and single-family homes down to where I live. So I would be very interested into what's going to happen over there.
Also, all those homes, the parking is backs into the street.
Yes.
You're in a parking lot.
Yes, it does. I think
So
it's
the
the row of townhouses they have down there that's creating the parking problem, because the apartments have actual lots that feed them,
So since
if I'm not
we're,
mistaken.
yeah, and since we were looking at the plan, we thought it'd be a good idea to include on the transportation map some kind of recommended conceptual road alignments for inside these two Harrison tracks to help guide future development. And so this is just one option, and we still have Rodney with us, of how that could happen.
The Harrison tract to the right of Dual Highway is in the city.
Yes,
Mhm.
zoned NMU.
Yeah.
Behind the IBM building. There's a line that runs sort of parallel with Dual Highway, not quite. And it's commercial to the west, south, and NMU to the east, north.
I remember that was
And we have the city engineer with us at the table.
All rise.
Yes.
Let the record show.
So what are your thoughts on that as a possible amendment to the transportation element?
I'm fine with it. I like getting these lines down.
Yeah,
And that's one of, I want to point out, that that's in the city, so the county can't mess us up again.
I think this is a really good solution to a problem we've struggled with for years. And it serves the Harrison tract as well. State Highway is definitely on board with it. I think it's a good plan.
I
By
like,
getting these road traces in, by the way, in the comp plan too, it would also then trigger, when these properties develop, the provisions in Article 5 that actually allow us to tell the developer, you will build that road, or at the very least, you will give the right of way. They have to design around it. It's actually an ordinance requirement.
That's why we do the transportation plan.
so this map shows,
With the
Yeah.
development of this Harrison tract and the road system in there, make sure that there is a provision to set aside some space for a monstrous water tower.
I mean, the Ron Thomas Water Tower.
There we go.
You can
Um,
name it anything you want as long as it provides water pressure.
So this is the proposal for the R. Paul Smith coming down from Edgewood Drive to get into this Harrison area. The next slide shows where it starts to get tricky. You have getting R. Paul Smith to Heb Road. It has to cross a wide swath of floodplain. And this is the newest drawing of the floodplain from when FEMA updated it. So in order to do this, whatever roadway would be there, it would have to be over some sort of a system to handle water.
Yeah, it'd have to be, they'd have to get a waterway construction permit from the state. It's doable, but it'll be expensive.
Mhm. And then another challenge is getting it to cross Heb into the Lyles Tract. The Lyles Tract does not touch Heb. There are two single-family home lots that come together in a rather odd manner to touch up against Heb, and the Lyles Tract, which is one that's being explored for development, is below that. So that's another obstacle that would have to be overcome.
Is that corner there, right where the red circle is that you're
Yeah, right-
referring to, the two
Right in
properties?
that, right inside that circle, that's where it's showing two lots that are between the Lyles Tract and Heb Road.
Okay. Somebody didn't pull their tape far enough.
And then if we go to the next slide, getting R. Paul Smith from Heb down to Beaver Creek, on the left map is showing kind of what the plan was showing as the alignment for it. The challenge now, and the farm field that you see in that where it says Lyles, that's the Lyles tract that's zoned for residential development, and he's actually got some interest in that, which we'll be hearing about more later. The challenge, and so you could conceivably you could build it through his tract as a part of his development, you know, if you've solved getting across Heb. The challenge is getting it to come across Beaver Creek, because the path where the plans were showing it in 2016 and 17, the county approved houses in the path of where that road was supposed to go. So there's 2 houses there now where that road was going to go. So the other option in the next slide is to swing it over further to the east into land that's now annexed into Funkstown. It just gets more and more complicated. Land got annexed into Funkstown in the last couple of years for a new residential development. So on the right-hand side, you see all that gray is now Funkstown. They used to end kind of closer to a line running across from where their stormwater or their wastewater facility is. They annexed a pretty good sized piece of land. That part of it is a Lyles tract for residential development. And then between that and alternate 40 is land that the town got to make more of a town park. And the town has also since approved a development plan for this new development on Lyles' land called Gaver Meadow. It's only partially final platted. There's some lots final platted on the west side up near Beaver Creek Road. So then the question is, could R. Paul Smith cross through and run along that road that they're showing there? Of course, it would really gum up what's already been approved, because it would undoubtedly need to be a bit wider than what they're showing in front of those single family lots, and then come through and would require doing away with several lots down below whatever this lowest street is called to get it over to the town parcel. So those are all questions. So
That on the left road there, coming off of Beaver Creek, is all the way in down to the bottom.
yeah, that's where they're starting.
And there's, and then to the right, they cul-de-sac is in. And some of the 2 roads going to our right are partially in too.
The lots, though, only lots that are platted are up in that upper area coming in off of Beaver Creek, the final platted lots.
I would only interject here that, when Paul Smith was conceived, a big part of the reason for that was to protect Funkstown from a lot of traffic going through the town from South County trying to get to Route 40 and vice versa. Now, 20 years later, we're looking at this, and Funkstown approved a plat that basically didn't include that, and they've also expanded their park. So,
and so if we go to the next slide, we had a stakeholder meeting last Friday on August 27th with the mayor of Funkstown, David Lyles, city staff, and then we invited county staff, we invited the MPO director, the Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle Metropolitan Planning Organization executive director, to a meeting to talk about all these issues. So we had in this room here, city staff, the mayor of Funkstown, and Dave Lyles, and then we had very quietly in Zoom, we had the county folks and the MPO director. So the conversation was really between the people in the room. Every once in a while, we directly asked a question of people out on the Zoom land, and we got a couple of answers, but mainly it was this group here that was doing all the conversations and ultimately came up with a recommendation. So we had discussions about the floodplain crossing to get to Heb, the lack of property control currently between Heb and the Lyles tract, plans already approved in Funkstown on the annexed land, and traffic challenges posed by the limited road connections in this area. It's a very rural-ish kind of feeling area over there. In fact, Emmert is very narrow and it dead ends. You can only go right from Heb and Emmert up onto Dual Highway. On Beaver Creek, you can go either direction, but one direction takes you, bam, right into the main traffic snarl up point in Funkstown, or you can go under 70 out to 40 over by the Auto Mall and then take a left and come back towards town. These are for the people who are trying to get north towards Hagerstown. It's difficult. What we did learn from the mayor of Funkstown is he was not aware of our Paul Smith Boulevard, so that didn't help. He was very aware of Southern Boulevard, and for that, he was saying that's their top priority, that get finished. And so it was coming as a surprise to him to learn about our Paul Smith Boulevard. Maybe if the town had more awareness, maybe they would have
Or if the county had a plan,
factored that in.
he could revert to the county plan.
Yeah.
Why would he revert to the city plan?
Or the MPO plan. It's in
Yeah.
the MPO plan.
The county plan would have been the first place you'd have gone to.
Yeah. So when we quizzed the county staff present about their approval of Gaver Meadows traffic study, and they determined that their review of the traffic study was that the transportation system in that area could handle the additional traffic from 150 homes, which is what would go on Gaver Meadows. Dave Lyles told us it's his responsibility at some point, and I forget now at what point this kicks in, to widen Emmert from Dual Highway to Beaver Creek. Once he does 80 lots, he has to widen it from Dual Highway all the way down to Beaver Creek.
No cheap project.
No. He also told us that the east entrance on Beaver Creek, which is where we were showing, well, possibly our Paul Smith could cross in on that road on the right side, that is only an emergency access point because the visibility is bad on Beaver Creek in that area. So really, the people who live in that development will only be using the left entrance on Beaver Creek and then an entrance on Emmert. That's the way the residents of the development will be entering and exiting the development. The area that seems perfect for our Paul Smith is just an emergency access point because I guess you would have to try to straighten out the road or something for better visibility. Yeah. So as I said, the mayor of Funkstown indicated that completion of Southern Boulevard is their top priority for the town to help remove through traffic from town streets. We, I think at the mayor's instigation, quizzed the county folks out on Zoom land whether or not Southern Boulevard Phase 2 was in the county CIP. And we were told, no, it's not because the path is within the city limits. So it's not in the county CIP. It's not in the city CIP because we don't view the road as providing a benefit to the city. It helps Funkstown, which we can certainly understand why that's a good thing. And it moves county traffic around, but it's not in our CIP because we don't view it as a city project. So in order to do the last phase, which is the expensive phase because it's a bridge over the Antietam Creek, funding would need to be identified for the bridge and the road construction and right of way acquired from the city because the city actually owns that land. It's part of the wastewater. It's wastewater utility land.
Yeah, you only have, you own part of it, and all of it.
The big chunk of it in there is called the city farm.
Yeah, but over to
Frederick Street.
almost Frederick Street, yes.
Didn't
from
the
the
county
creek
buy some
over-
of those lots in there, Doug?
Huh?
Didn't the county buy some of those residential lots on the east side?
I'm not aware on the east side. I think they did on the west side, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But you're right. There's,
And then from the
Other-
creek over to Edgewood, don't know who owns that. Harrison, I guess.
The mayor of Funkstown owns that.
Oh,
It was recently annexed into the town.
No.
And
he said the creek over to Edgewood.
on Southern.
yes,
That's the warehouse development.
That's Harrison.
no, but there's a little tail end of it. Like you've got the Harrison land and then there's this little piece that comes up back behind the houses at front on Edgewood.
Okay.
That was very recently annexed into the town and it's owned by Paul Crampton Construction or whatever.
So it's almost there.
But the warehouse development does touch the city lands across from Antietam Creek. So
So-
Southern Boulevard could be constructed across the warehouse property, across city property, and then the only thing it's left to deal with is out at Frederick Street.
Probably two homes. Because they didn't take any homes down when they built that circle. There's some still there.
It's true.
I recommended that the mayor of Funkstown get a seat at the table on the HEP MPO that makes the decisions about this kind of stuff and advocates for transportation projects, because they're always looking for municipal reps on that board, and it's not eagerly accepted. Put it that way.
Well, completing Southern will help Funkstown,
Mhm. Oh, yes,
but they still have got to handle that traffic coming out of South County,
right.
which is significant,
Mhm.
coming up out of Boonesboro.
Right. So after that lively discussion that we had with the folks at the table, the city engineer recommended that an update be done to the MPO's R. Paul Smith Boulevard traffic study, giving the changes which have occurred over time in this area to study what that looks like asses. To study what, to assess the traffic impacts and benefit to be derived from R. Paul Smith Boulevard at this point. And that could be going on, I guess, concurrently with the traffic studying that Lyles will have to do for the Reese Tract, which is the parcel that he owns that's in the city.
Actually, I told Dave that that will be the same study.
Okay.
He'll pay for that whole study.
Okay, so Lyles will handle that study.
Which he seemed to agree to.
So then the next slide are the recommendations that came from the folks that were in that meeting that were in the council chamber. So basically, city staff, the mayor of Funkstown and David Lyles, keep Southern Boulevard Phase 2 in the comp plan, add to the comp plan the extension of R. Paul Smith to the dual highway, add to the comp plan proposed roadway improvements on the Harrison Tract north of dual highway, including extension of Day Road, keep in the comp plan at this time the middle and southern legs of R. Paul Smith pending a future traffic study. So that was what came out of our meeting last week, a stakeholder meeting with the government entities and the developer of the two large tracks that the road would traverse. So any, you want me to pause there before I go on to the next part?
Well, let me ask the rest of the commission, any thoughts on those recommendations?
If I understand you, Kathy, we're going to abandon the part of the extension of R. Paul Smith Boulevard that would ultimately terminate on alternate Route 40.
On the north side of Edgewood.
Right. Yeah, this group did not discuss that, the part where it would be, the mayor and council saying they wanted removed from the plan between Howell and Edgewood.
Well, it seems to me that it's never going to happen unless you're willing to condemn a substantial portion of the Gable tract.
Oh, you mean the middle, the southern leg?
Yeah. I mean, given that, I mean, the town of Funkstown, which really was part of the moving interest in doing this in the first place, they've foreclosed the possibility that Southern Boulevard, R. Paul Smith Boulevard can be extended out to alternate Route 40. So why keep that in the plan? It's never going to happen.
The mayor indicated the door is not completely closed.
Okay.
He has another problem too, getting to his parkland. Because he bought that with open space money, I guess.
That's right. I don't know that open space money will allow that.
Yeah.
A road of that nature.
So he's got
He's
two
gonna explore it.
problems that he's created, getting that done.
And I take it the mayor and council have told us that to take that out.
The section from Edgewood to Howell.
That's
Right.
it. The north side, north part.
We're discussing all the rest of this because since we're going to open the comp plan for that, we should really look at the entirety of our Paul Smith Boulevard as well as the Harrison tracks in that vicinity.
Well,
At the
the
same
only thing I'm
time,
saying is I question whether we should keep in the plan the part of it that extends to alternate Route 40.
From Heb to,
My question is, what are we trying to accomplish here? Are we trying to accomplish a bypass, shortcut, or whatever to not only reach these parcels that need to be or should be developed, or are we trying to develop a straight shot where we don't have to weave around in all of the different existing developments to get from alternate 40 and going north towards the Pennsylvania line?
I think what's this, the county has messed up and it's forever doors, forever closed. And this is the north section from going north off of Edgewood to the dual highway.
Okay.
That section the county has messed up. It's a done deal. And now we have a developer who wants to absolutely close that door, and so does the council. What we have in front of us tonight is, and this is because of this and other things going on in the area, we need to try our best to have a good traffic system, good set of roads to give alternate ways for people to move. If this door, if we don't get something done for the traffic coming north on alternate 40 to get around Funkstown, they're going to be forever doomed because they can't go around on the west side because that's where their water treatment facility is and a whole lot of Antietam Creek and everything else, as well as residents over there. So at least we ought to try to put down on paper that maybe the mayor of Funkstown has enough power that he can correct his two mistakes. And we also can somehow or another get across Heb Road and into the Lyles property. And we can convince David Lyles to redo his design, which he's already done to get through there. We won't, none of that will get done if we walk away from this now. So do we put a line down now and see if it can get done? Or do we just go ahead and just say, well, it can't be done, and we walk away from it?
There was a lot of discussion about whether or not the southern leg should be abandoned. And then we got on the track about the traffic study. So then it seemed to me like maybe we should wait on that until after the traffic study.
Well, that, yeah, okay.
It seems like that we've got three heads here trying to satisfy the same issue, but they don't seem to be bumping heads together to get it done.
One head's asleep. One head's asleep at the switch. They're just not playing because they don't know how to play. So what we're trying to do is fix it as best we can for what's left.
Well, that's the question I'm asking. Is there any way we can get a 2x4 and whack that head, from behind and get it to play with the rest of the guys?
Probably not, but this is one little 2x2 we can maybe use.
We can always make him an offer he won't refuse.
Well, we're going to have the traffic study. We're keeping the MPO in the loop because they are updating the long-range transportation plan right now for the whole region. And so they will be in the loop. And so we'll see what that study says.
Well, the thing that the issue I'm looking at is it all is designed to make this area more attractive. And if we keep bumping heads and running into these issues where we do something without talking to the other parties that are involved, we're going to keep running into this issue. And there's something that's got to be done about it to make this issue come about.
Well, all of the land right now for the middle section, the southern section of our Paul Smith Boulevard is in the city of Hagerstown or the town of Funkstown. So the two parties that really need to be talking are talking.
Okay. It's the third party that's putting the monkey wrench in the whole operation. Is that correct?
There is no unincorporated land left of where this road is supposed to go.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I understand I guess going ahead and doing the traffic study is fine on these assumptions, but at some point, I mean, we can't solve the problem that was created by approving the Gaber development in such a way that we're not, I mean, I don't know that we can go around it. So, I mean, that's Funkstown's problem. If they want the connection, they're going to have to solve it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right. But we can make it a little bit more convincing to solve it by putting it in our comprehensive plan, and hopefully the state or the regional people can also put it in their comprehensive plan and their planning, which gives Funkstown a little more of a push, maybe a little more backbone.
Yeah, it's already in the plan. It's been in the MPO's plan since 2005.
Yeah.
And each time it was updated, it stayed in the plan.
Well,
So right now, tonight, we're talking about maybe just proposing a revision of the comprehensive plan, eliminating the northern section of our Smith.
And then whether you want to also modify the plan to show the improvements on the Harrison tracks.
The Harrison tracks on the other, both sides of dual highway. That's a good addition.
And then I
Okay, that's okay. That's a good summary.
Then I wanted to give you a little update on what's happened since we adopted our comp plan in terms of improvement projects that are in the plan. And then also how the long-range plan changed between, we were working off the 2015, I think it was, MPO, and we did our comp plan. They updated it in 2018, and now they're updating again right now for 2022.
So you want to continue with your presentation?
Yeah, if possible.
Yes, go right ahead.
All right. So there's 3 county projects that are in the comp plan that have been completed since the 2018 plan was adopted. Southern Boulevard Phase 1 was completed from East Oak Ridge to Frederick Street. Creighton Boulevard was extended to Showalter Road. And the widening of Edgewood Drive, it's now 4 lanes from Robinwood Drive to Howell Road. The question is, do we want to update the references in the comp plan to show that those are completed? You don't have to, it's just a question.
I think we should. Personally. Any
Sounds
opposed to
reasonable.
that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we're going to go to the trouble of updating it all, we ought to put in stuff like that.
And then just to give you a little, I looked at the 2018 plan, I compared it to the prior plan and what's in our comp plan. And I could see, and they're calling that the 2018 plan is the 2045 plan, just to be a little confusing. The numbers don't line up at all. But most of the recommended improvement projects in the Hagerstown's medium range growth area carried over from the 2040 plan to the 2045 plan. And it was the 2040 plan we were looking at with our comp plan. The 2045 plan, however, dropped the Robinwood Drive bypass to Maryland 64, the much contested one that would have, I guess, blasted through some land to the west of where Robinwood goes now. So you wouldn't have all through traffic going through that neighborhood. But the people over on the west side didn't want it to happen either. So that got dropped. They were also showing in the 2040 plan a Charlie Drive realignment that seemed to have gotten dropped. The way that touched onto Showalter Road, that seemed to have been dropped. The 2045 plan added Basil Boulevard widening in the city. And then also the 2045 plan added 5 significant projects outside the city in the MRGA and vicinity, extending Colonel Henry Kidd Douglas Drive across the Antietam Creek to alternate 40, extending Showalter Road over to Paradise Church Road, which goes across farmland, extend Western Maryland Parkway across the railroad to Railway Lane. I do not see that ever happening. Construct a roundabout at Underpass Way and Halfway Boulevard, I guess trying to refix the challenge of that area. And then reconstruct the Maryland 65 I-70 interchange. I wasn't sure if that's already done as the Walmart project or if there was more that they wanted to do.
No, they want to do a major reconstruction of that interchange and change the ramps and everything. That's something they've been working on for some time.
Yeah.
Did they do that already? Underpass Way and Halfway Boulevard, right?
That's construction forever.
Why would they put a roundabout?
And now what they're doing now, they're changing ramps now, aren't they?
This would be over by the Starbucks.
Yeah, they're going to rebuild the bridges, I understand, and there's a lot more to come over there is all I know, Doug.
It looks like they're trying to add a new lane on each side. From what I gathered when I went by it the last week.
Well, having them in our plan.
Oh, yeah, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting we not do anything with the rest of it.
Okay.
This is the map. The next slide is the map from the 2045 plan. The red lines are the fiscally constrained projects. And these categories always kind of crack me up. The green lines are the existing plus committed projects, which are probably also fiscally constrained. And then the purple are the unfunded projects, which are most of them. And so if we go to the next slide, since they plan, I reached out to the MPO's director and they plan to adopt the new plan in May of 2022. So I'm recommending we not update the long range transportation plan to reflect the 2045 plan since they're about to adopt the 2050 plan. So I'm suggesting we not try to address the 2045 changes and that any comp plan changes the city makes to the recommended road alignments as a result of this opening of our comp plan. We're keeping them in the loop so it could go into the long range transportation plan. That's the I guess they're going to call the 2050 plan that they're planning to adopt next May. And so the last slide we have is the next steps is continued discussions at September 9th if you need them. Once the commission has reached a consensus, city staff prepares the draft updates for the 60-day clearinghouse review for our comp plan amendment. Commission's public review meeting would occur after that process ends. And then after planning commission has a public review meeting and finalizes it and makes a recommendation, then the public review process starts with the mayor and city council. And then ultimately the mayor and city council adopts it by resolution. So do we need, have we reached a consensus on what you want to do in terms of abandoning R. Paul Smith from
Let's do
Edgewood?
that one at a time so
Okay.
we're all on the same page.
Okay. Abandoning R. Paul Smith from Edgewood to Howell. That's one issue. Take it out of the comp plan.
All right. What's the feeling, commission?
Sounds like we ought to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
I can make a motion if we need to. This is Chris.
All right, we go to the motion. Fine. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Very good. So a motion made by Chris, seconded by Jim, I think,
To take that part out.
to take the part out from R. Paul Smith from Edgewood to Howell.
Right. And the second issue is adding into the plan. Oh, wait, you gotta do the vote.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I ramrodded that one. Hearing none, that passes unanimously.
The
Next phase,
The next issue is adding in recommended road alignments into the Harrison tracks between Edgewood and the dual highway and dual highway, the east side of dual highway, as we showed earlier in the meeting. That
I'll make that
extends.
motion. This is Chris.
Okay.
on the Dade Road side.
To extend R. Paul Smith up to the dual highway, cross over the dual highway into the other Harrison track and extend Day Road.
Both sides.
Yep, both sides. Chris, that was what you're motioning, Chris?
Yes.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Chris, second by Ron. Any discussion on this motion?
Just say that state highway will require the connection to Redwood Circle. I don't know if that's important to your motion or not, but that has to be part of it.
Yeah. As we show on the drawing.
Did you all hear that? That if that road is built, state highway will require that to be a traffic circle where that road intersects the dual highway.
Or a signal intersection.
It'll signalize an intersection, but the road has to cross over into the Harrison land on the east side and connect to Redwood Circle.
That's a requirement.
Of
of-
Redwood Circle.
That's
That's a
a,
requirement of state highway.
So there's no traffic circle. I heard you wrong.
No,
Okay,
connecting to Redwood Circle.
all right.
I can't even imagine what would be involved with a traffic circle on a dual highway.
No, that'll be a signalized intersection.
Yeah.
Welcome to Paris.
All right,
And then
are we all clear on the motion? We ready to vote? Hearing no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
the last thing was updating the references to the 3 county projects that have been completed since the 2018 plan was adopted, which is to show them as finished. Southern Boulevard Phase 1, Creighton Boulevard, and widening of Edgewood.
I move.
This is Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who made the motion?
Well, I
It's
thought-
Chris.
All right,
Okay,
Chris. Jimmy, you want to do the second?
I'll second it.
You're okay with that? Any further discussion? Any discussion at all? Oh, we already had discussion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I assume ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Got to hear none, so it passes unanimously.
I don't know that we will have the updated plan ready for September 9th review, but we can try for that. But Steve has indicated, even if we don't have comp plan stuff, he has development review he'd like to review on the 9th.
Yeah, the holidays have goofed us up as far as timing. We have the meeting today, September 1. Our next meeting isn't for a month. It's September 29th. And I got some stuff that wasn't quite ready for today, which will be percolating. We shouldn't let it sit a month if we can avoid it.
So there's still a reason to meet on the 9th.
Sorry.
Hey.
And we
All
can,
right.
we can work to have something for you to review on the comp plan. I don't know if I'll have graphics ready, but we certainly will have the text ready.
Okay. That's a good discussion, everybody. Thank you.
While we're talking about transportation in that area, Mr. Chairman, I heard some today I think will make you happy. State Highway has funded the design and construction of sidewalks on the dual highway from Eastern Boulevard the whole way to 70. And they're going to start the design in the next few months.
Fantastic. As we were driving up to Walden, I was telling Steve, you weren't in the car then, where you go?
No, I was in the other car.
Yeah. Just that day, I was coming in on dual highway, going west, and as I was approaching the bridge over the Antietam Creek, here was a fella in a motorized wheelchair.
Yeah.
Trying to work his way down that on my right-hand side. And there was no place for him to go. And traffic was 45 miles an hour, whipping by him. So
Yeah, it's needed.
are they going to do something to get across the creek?
I think that's part of the design.
Oh, really? Is
I don't
it the
know
old
what that
historical bridge problem? Or?
I don't know.
Great. Okay, well, still, I'm excited. Thank you.
Eastern, whole way to 70.
All righty. We ready to move on? Yep. Discussion of the field trip to Walden.
Yes, we contacted the planning director, Chris Guarino of Silver Spring Township, and we have a Zoom meeting set up with him on Friday afternoon. Doug is going to be participating in that. Also, several members of the staff. On our end, we've probably already got 6 people participating in it. I would ask that we keep it to who we have now, just as not to overwhelm the Silver Spring folks. But if you have specific questions that you want answers to, if you could forward them to one of us or Doug between now and Friday afternoon, we'll be happy to ask them. But we think adding another half a dozen people to a meeting we're already bringing half a dozen people to is probably not appropriate in this situation. But if you have questions, forward them to us and we'll make sure we get answers for you. And with that, if you want to discuss what you saw at Walden, we have you on the agenda right now to talk about it.
I think it was great that Rodney and Steve Lowe were there. They both provided great input to us as we looked at things. And I particularly, well, both of them, particularly though, Steve, we can get so enamored by trying to make things look nice. Sometimes we forget how to, the city is going to be able to do things with it. So particularly a width of alleys and width of streets. But the rear loading really helps a lot in achieving that look, that streetscape look, I think, because it gets a lot of cars off the street. Now we did walk down some alleys and notes, Steve's notes that were Kathy's notes. And we came across a couple garages that were full of valuable furniture or other knickknacks, and there were no way a car could have gotten in there. So you know that some people are still parking on the street, but I guess that's their choice. But so we need to be very careful in dimensioning some of this stuff out. But it's a very attractive community. The mix of housing types is done very nicely. The layout of the roads was nice. The houses that actually opened out onto park space, the only thing between them and a park was a sidewalk. Also very attractive, but they have to be watched closely because I think, again, we want to be sure that if a rescue squad wants, it's got to get to that middle home, it can get there in the worst possible weather. So we have to be careful of that. Colors, everything else, it was done very nicely. I have been in other communities that looked very similar to that. Also looked nice, and I think it'd be great if we can get one started here in this community and have other people recognize that it's a great value and become more popular.
The only thing that I think I mentioned when I was there was the close proximity of or the widening of the wideness of the roads. The two-way streets where you really don't have that real space to get two SUVs by each other without one pulling over. Other than that, I thought the setup and so forth was very, very inviting, but it was a little too close for me. I would have liked to seen just a little bit more space between the different homes, especially the yards that had the fences with the gates in them, where you needed to have a gate to get from one property to the other in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
I mean, that's built-in traffic calming.
Yeah.
I guess my observation on that was the same as yours, Ron. I mean, it makes me a little uncomfortable as a traffic engineer to say that we want the roads to be so narrow that people have to actually pull over to get by. But that works. I mean, it does. I bet they don't have speeding problems like we do on most of our newer subdivisions. And I guess the only one reservation I had about it too was if it was really parked full, which a lot of those roads weren't. I don't know where you'd pull over to get by.
It was one block where it was parked full, and that's where the fire chief mentioned that would have been really tight for a fire truck.
Yeah.
That's the emergency equipment is one of the concerns that I had with the narrow streets. I think I think you would get to live maybe with the narrowness for, residential vehicles to get by. But when you're talking about safety and emergency vehicles, they need that extra time and not to have to wait or one backup or so forth to get by. That's just something that needs to be considered when you design the developments or communities like this.
It was nice that the alleys are wide enough that they were doing trash pickup back there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I had some brief conversation with Mr. Guarino, and he mentioned a couple of these things. We didn't talk very long because it was his planning commission day and he was getting ready for his board meeting. But he kind of dropped a few hints on some things that that he wanted to talk to us about. And I told him specifically, I said, we can see what's good. Tell us what you don't like about it. So I don't want the meeting to sound like it's being framed in a negative standpoint, but if there's concerns we want that we're not picking up on, we want to know so we don't make the same mistakes that they did.
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. That's probably, yeah, it's a much, I have a tendency to be blunt. That's a much more artistic way of putting it. Lessons learned. Also keep in mind that part of the purpose is, the main purpose was just to show general concept of development. We can negotiate out and hash out a 25-foot versus a 28-foot wide road or whatever as we move along. The idea is this general product, is this where we want to go? And if so, let's work toward getting the standards put in place. The good thing is, from a staff's perspective, is I don't think we're really going to need to amend at least the land management code. I can't speak to Rodney's standard templates for public construction, but as far as the zoning and Article 5 stuff goes, I don't see this really requiring a whole lot of ordinance attention.
Just having houses front on a park would require it.
There are a few things. Yeah, there's a handful of things that we would need to tweak the ordinance about, but it's going to this, it's already in place essentially in our ordinances. It's just making it a priority, pushing it, because, for example, the word recommended or suggested is used a lot in Article 5 when it was rewritten. And I literally have had engineers come to me and say, thank you for recommending that. Now we're going to do what we want. Weasel words, when you have a law, laws mean what they say and don't mean what they don't say. So we need to kind of look at some of those words in our ordinance to make sure that we're giving direction to the development community specifically of what the city wants.
It's a really good time for it because we're getting a lot of interest for new residential developments.
Yeah.
Aiken, could you just continue screen sharing so we can see everybody? Thank you.
But we don't need to rewrite our subdivision ordinance to do this. So 90% of what we saw there, somebody could do now. And especially in the NMU zoning district, which has essentially nothing more than a rear setback, just about everything that you saw there, if somebody wanted to do in a raw land NMU zone tract right now, they could do anything that you saw up there now.
Except for fronting on a park.
Except for fronting on a park. That is correct.
Yeah.
No, that is correct, yes.
Chris, you want to share your thoughts?
I like the idea that, the part of the development that would have fronted a street, that had some traffic on it was left as a berm. Because we all know that even though that road was somewhat rural now, 20 years from now, it wasn't going to stay that way. And those houses were not going to be attractive when they changed hands. And I think that was a very interesting way to go about doing that.
That acted as a good buffer also
It did.
for the noise of the roadway. When those trees mature that were between the houses and the main road, they will act as a sound buffer.
The other traffic calming measure that really got my attention was those intersecting roads that were at right angles that
Yes.
had no reinforcement or no enforcement of like parking restrictions or anything like that. It was basically the two roads ran into each other, so you had to go really slow around that super tight radius to make that maneuver. Our standards say that has to be a much bigger curve that you can go faster through. That might be something that we want to look at seriously too.
Yeah, that would be very hard to go fast in that development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, Steve pointed out if you had parking too close to those corners, then he couldn't get around it.
Yeah. One thing to take into account, I think I mentioned this when we were starting the tour, is Walden, there's not a public street in the entire place. So there are some differences. There's things that we wouldn't tolerate and would have to frankly be done differently under our standards. Again, look at the big picture here. We'll need to massage the details to make it work in our environment within our regulatory scheme. But every street that you saw in that development was maintained by the HOA.
Mm-hmm.
And that ain't happening here. That's a non-starter here. So.
Well, the one thing you brought up, Steve, that I think we ought to address is there were no street lights for a development like that could easily been designed for a walking path around for the owners. It would have been nice to have had street lights there so that you could walk around at night.
We're going to need to ask them about that. That is a good question. Are they, because every house had a post light out by the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Collectively, they provided a certain amount of lighting, but not like what we would typically have with what we more envision as street lights within the street right away. So we're going to need to ask them about that.
Plus, we were there leaving at dusk, so it was hard to tell if those were automatically coming on lights or if the homeowner had to keep them on.
I think the homeowner.
I really don't think
Yeah.
they were controlled by the.
If they were associated with the property, I would venture to say that they were manually operated.
Yeah, I think so.
Unless the city or the HOM, the homeowners association, HOA was paying the light bill.
These are all questions that we're going to need to ask Mr. Guarino when we talk to him on Friday. So if you do have any specific questions that you want us to ask, send them to Kathy or me or Doug, and we'll make sure they get asked.
All right, can we move on to our last item? That is our new revised rules of procedure.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you for interpreting our concerns, my concern, or concern.
I think I got it, and I do apologize. I was supposed to work with you on that, and just life got away from us on this one.
So basically, it starts on page 3. I do have just a few things. At the bottom of page 3, what appears to be the last sentence beginning with how. However, developers and their engineers are advised that due to potential for miscommunication inherent in our online platform, or in, why don't you put in an online platform, because we don't know what the future online platforms will be.
Okay.
So AN in front of on. Meetings, it is, and I would strike the words generally. That's one of, would you call those words?
Weasel words.
I knew that. What'd you say? It is general, it is expected that at least one representative, strike shall, one representative will appear in person and participate in the meeting, and then strike in person.
Okay. If we add that word "and," then I think we need to change the text of the word meetings to meeting, in an online platform meeting.
Yep, that's fine. What I'm trying to, if a new or improved product similar to Zoom comes out,
Amy, I'll do it here.
we're not. And I didn't have anything else on the 4th page, page 4. Does anybody else have anything that they want to point out?
I thought you did a great job, Steve.
Thank you.
Better you than me, I'll guarantee you.
Well, if this is all your changes, if you want, you could just somebody can make a motion to adopt it with the changes stated, and you can adopt them tonight.
I was just pausing and waiting. Yes. Do
So
we want,
moved.
someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Now, we still have time for discussion before we vote. Any discussion? All righty, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. And I believe we're adjourned.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.